channelers. You know what it is, JayDevin back at it with another video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Subscribe if you feel my vibe. Power up, punch the notification bell for more PvP content. For today's video, we are going to be doing a little bit of a retro, I guess, on my channel. A little bit of a throwback, whatever you want to call it. We are going to look at some, I guess, off-meta or sub-meta picks. It's something that I used to do a lot, and I stopped doing it. I don't know why, because I really enjoyed it. So we're going to get back to it. Today's video features what could possibly be my favorite out of all of them, out of all the options, my personal favorite wildcard pick for the Boulder Cup 2.0, aka Mirror Cup. Now, before I introduce the Pokemon and explain why, get into the stats, the details, the moves, etc., what I would like to do is offer you some of its considerable matchups, okay? Its considerable matchups are some Pokemon that could very well be very common in the Boulder Cup 2.0, and there are 5 of those Pokemon in particular that this off-meta or sub-meta pick could destroy. These are all going to be in 1 shield versus 1 shield matchups, okay? Not 0 shield to 1 shield, not 1 shield to 0 shield, nothing else, just 1 shield versus 1 shield. And the 5 considerable matchups, number 1 is Bronzong. Yes, the beatdown bell. Bronzong gets deleted. Number 2 is Jirachi. Yes, Jirachi gets defeated. Number 3 is going to be Gallade. Yes, Gallade gets defeated. Number 4 is going to be Claydol. Yes, Claydol. I'm talking about Claydol, even with its new moves and its new move set. Same thing with Bronzong, new moves and new move set. It gets deleted. And the number 5 considerable matchup is going to be against Metagross. Metagross can get yeeted. Now, at this point, you might have already caught on to what I'm thinking about and what I'm speculating on, because all of those Pokemon have one thing in common. All of those Pokemon are part psychic typing. Now, if you know your typings, hashtag know your typings, Psychic's going to be weak to Ghost. Psychic is also going to be weak to Dark. So enough of the teasing. If you don't already know who I'm talking about, let's just get right into them, okay? Bam! Yes, it is Tyranitar. Tyranitar. Why Tyranitar? Well, Bite and Crunch. That is why Tyranitar. For a Great League Tyranitar, one thing you should know is it does have to be a wild catch. It cannot be from a raid. It cannot be from an egg hatch evolved from a Larvitar. That level will be too high. Because for a Great League Tyranitar, if you have the perfect PvP IVs, what you need is a 0 attack stat, 15 defense stat, and 15 stamina stat. Its CP for a Great League with that perfect PvP IV spread will max out at 1499 CP, and its level will be 14.5. So it has to be a low level wild catch. And with my considerable matchups that I had in mind when thinking about Tyranitar and speculating on it, you don't really need a second move. If you want to have a second move, by all means go for it. It does cost a lot of Stardust, but with the way I would use it as a wild card, you do not need a second move. You don't need it, okay? All you need is Bite and Crunch. That's it. That's all you're gonna use. You could use Stone Edge if you throw on a second move. You could use Fire Blast even as a second move. Why in the world would you run a Bite and Fire Blast Tyranitar in Great League? I have no idea, but if anybody does end up winning a tournament with a Fire Blast from a Tyranitar that has Bite, by all means, let me know in the comments below, because if that happens, you are, in fact, a Pokemon master. And hold up, to rewind here just a second, I already do know what you're thinking with Tyranitar. It will get destroyed, completely wrecked, destroyed, annihilated, yeeted, deleted, defeated by fighting types. We already know that. It takes 256% damage from fighting type moves, so anything with counter will completely obliterate Tyranitar. Also, a negative considerable matchup will be Torterra. You might end up getting matched up against a lot of Torterra with Razor Leaf. Another thing, we just got it, Hydro Cannon Swampert can also obliterate Tyranitar. Yes, it has considerable negative matchups, but it's more of a way to threaten and or to shut down those powerful wildcard picks, such as Bronzong, such as Claydol, such as Gallade, such as Jirachi. I really doubt you're going to run into many Metagross at all, but those other 4 considerable matchups are probably going to be more meta relevant and more common as picks. Okay, so jumping over to PvPoke, shout out to PvPoke. If you don't use it, go ahead and use it. The link is in the description. It's always in the description. We're going to run run a few simulations for Great League single battles with Tyranitar against those considerable matchups. As you can see here, Tyranitar and Bronzong, neither of them for these simulations have optimized PvP IVs, okay? So they could be completely average spreads, and the matchups are still going to be considerable. So this simulation is with Tyranitar running Bite, Crunch, and Stone Edge. Again, don't worry about Stone Edge, okay? You know what? Even then, for the sake of my point and for the sake of this video, we're going to assume that your Tyranitar, if you use one, only has Bite and Crunch. And I'm going to use it that way for all of these simulations. Tyranitar versus Bronzong. Bronzong having Confusion, Psyshock, and Bulldoze, which should be its most threatening moveset, respectively, for this meta. Let's run the battle. Tyranitar wins in 29 seconds with a battle rating of 866. That is high. That is very high. That's absurdly high. This is going to take into account shield baiting. So what we will actually do at this point is we're going to run the simulation again, but with no shields and no shields. So 0 shields to 0 shields, okay? We already know he wins outright, 1 shield to 1 shield. And that's still assuming they're going to shield bait with Psyshock, okay? Run the battle simulation again. Tyranitar still wins in 28 seconds with a battle rating of 534. It is very close for comfort, okay? Why? Because the Bulldoze is still really going to hurt. Thankfully, Bronzong, the beatdown bell, does not get same type attack bonus from Bulldoze. So it's not gonna completely one-hit KO your Tyranitar. Tyranitar should be able to tank the hit. If we go to the end of the simulation, we see the faint marker here. We see Tyranitar is only left with 8 HP, 8 hit points, 8 life points, whatever you want to call it, but he still wins. Could that be a clutch victory? Yes. Now, let's go into Bronzong versus Jirachi. This is, I don't know why this says this. You're not going to run Charge Beam. Don't run Charge Beam. Confusion. Doom Desire, yes. Dazzling Gleam. Realistically, I don't think anybody's going to be run Dazzling Gleam as a second move. Typically, if somebody does have a Jirachi with 2 moves, you're going to see Psychic for the most part, okay? Now let's change the shielding again. So 1 shield to 1 shield. Tyranitar versus Jirachi. Both of them not optimal PvP IVs. Tyranitar having only Bite and Crunch, and Jirachi having Confusion, Doom Desire. Doom Desire can be scary. It can potentially delete you. It's going to be super effective. As a steel type move, it will be super effective to rock. Tyranitar is part rock typing. That's where the 256% damage amount that's taken from fighting type comes from, right? Because fighting is super effective to rock and to dark. Keep the typings in mind. Know your typings. Run the battle simulation. Tyranitar wins in 19.5 seconds with a battle rating of 866. So even with shield baiting and with Doom Desire, which can destroy you, Tyranitar completely shreds through Jirachi. Look at how much life Tyranitar is going to have left. 85 hit points. 85 to 0 out of 128 with Jirachi. Now, again, that is assuming you use a shield on the Doom Desire, right? So let's take off the shields from both Pokemon. No shields and no shields. Battle. Jirachi's going to win. Yes, that is very unfortunate news. Not much you can do about it. You're going to need a shield. This is my point. That's why I mostly want to concentrate on things in 1 shield versus 1 shield scenarios. You're going to save a shield for Tyranitar. But if you look at this, Tyranitar does not even use a crunch. He doesn't even get to a crunch. You see, by the time Jirachi is going to get off Doom Desire, Tyranitar only has about 3/4, almost 3/4, maybe a little over 3/4 of the way to his crunch from the bite damage, and Jirachi is brought all the way down to 26 hit points. If, depending on the other Pokemon you have sitting next to your Tyranitar, that Jirachi with 26 hit points left and no additional energy built up because it just used it, might not be much of a threat at all. Could be a laughing matter. On to the next matchup. What we are going to consider for this matchup will be Claydol. So Claydol, this has it with Mud Slap, Earthquake, and Earth Power. Mud Slap, personally, I think as for Claydol as a Pokemon, could create him as a whole wild card in and of himself, but for the sake of, I guess, this presentation in this video and the overall meta and what you are probably going to see more often for the most part would be a Confusion Claydol. Mud Slap Claydol might catch on fairly quickly. It has great matchups in a lot of situations, you know, versus Bastiodon, versus Probopass, versus Steelix. It has a lot of those good matchups. But again, for this situation, we are going to assume it has Confusion. Mudslap Claydol, completely different story, right? So this matchup is going to depend on the fast move that Claydol has. So let's put 1 shield on Tyranitar. Let's also still put 1 shield on the Claydol, okay? Bite and only Crunch. Only 1 charge move for Tyranitar, just just crunch. No Stone Edge, no Fire Blast, nothing else, just bite and crunch. For Claydol, we have Confusion, Earth Power, and let's actually opt for, not Psychic, let's opt for Gyro Ball. That's it, as its additional moveset. One shield versus one shield. Tyranitar versus Claydol. Again, Confusion, Gyro Ball, and Earth Power on the Claydol. Run the simulation. You're going to see Tyranitar wins in 31.5 seconds with a battle rating of 844. It does take Tyranitar a little bit longer to bite away at the Claydol, but he's still going to win. Notice, look at the simulation. After all these bites and everything that Claydol is going to do with its confusions, it gets to the Earth Power fairly quickly. He does use a shield. Then at that point, it only takes 2 more bites for Tyranitar to get to his crunch, and then their Claydol should be shielding. At that point, they're going to get off another 2 confusions, which will do virtually nothing, and this bite is just going to shred them to pieces. Still in the one shield versus one shield scenario, this is something I think should be considered. It's important. If they have a Claydol with Mud Slap, if they're cheesy, if they're smart, if they're strategic, if they have a Mud Slap Claydol and they're running that cheese, you do not want Tyranitar to be in there. You don't. Tyranitar is still going to win in 31.5 seconds, but with only 5 HP left in the 1v1 shield scenario against a Mud Slap Claydol. People might be sleeping on Mud Slap Claydol. They might be laughing at it. Take it seriously. Okay, so now we're going to run the no shield against no shield scenario. Still just bite and just crunch on Tyranitar. Claydol, let's switch it back to confusion just for the sake of this simulation. Let's run the battle simulation. Look at this. Claydol is going to win no shields versus no shields. That Earth Power it can get to very quickly destroys Tyranitar, destroys him. But still, look at just bite, just using bite, the sheer damage output that it has against it. It's absurd. It's nuts. That Claydol gets deleted, and in this scenario, let's even say you have a shield or you have 2 shields. You don't want to use a shield. You don't need to use a shield. You just let the Tyranitar go down because chances are they probably also have a Medicham in their team of 3. This is going to put what I like to call switch pressure on them. If they lead with Claydol, for example, and you lead with Tyranitar, they are going to be so much more inclined to switch into that Medicham, and you can switch into a Medicham counter or your own Medicham. Now let's run the simulation with Bite Crunch Tyranitar no shields versus Mud Slap Earth Power Gyro Ball Claydol with no shields. Simulate the battle. Claydol wins in 19.5 seconds with a battle rating of 630. Mud Slap. I'm telling you, maybe this video even features 2 Pokemon, right? Mud Slap Claydol and Bite Crunch Tyranitar, the dynamic duo. So what you could do, considering Tyranitar against the Claydol matchups, is you could run the first battle. If they, let's say they have a Claydol in their team of 6, you run the first battle without even including Tyranitar in their team of 3, and assuming they have Claydol in that team of 3, you just test it out to see what fast move it has. If it has Confusion, it's going to have great matchups against the Claydol if you save a shield. If it has Mud Slap, stick with something else. And here is my favorite considerable matchup when it comes to using a Bite Crunch Tyranitar for the Boulder Cup 2.0. Again, we're just using PvPoke for all these simulations. Shout out to PvPoke, consider supporting. Now, again, Bite Crunch Tyranitar versus Gallade. Why would I run this simulation? Why is Tyranitar even considerable? Because Gallade could be very, very common in the Boulder Cup 2.0. Gallade wasn't even a thing in the Boulder Cup, okay? Now it's a complete new addition. It can have favorable matchups against Medicham, which Medicham can dominate the Boulder Cup meta. Gallade is like the ninja of the Boulder Cup 2.0. Confusion threatens Medicham. Leaf Blade will delete Swamperts. Close Combat can come in clutch against Skarmory. So even though he has a fast move, Confusion, that is resisted by Skarmory, and also Leaf Blade as a charge move which is resisted by Skarmory, he can still potentially win that matchup because of Close Combat. Gallade could be very, very common. Let's just get into the matchup without talking anymore about Gallade, because that's not who's in this video. That's not the featured Pokemon. We're talking about Tyranitar. Bite and Crunch, no additional charge move, just Bite, just Crunch. Let's do one shield versus one shield, okay? Again, Gallade having Confusion, Close Combat, and Leaf Blade. That is going to be his optimal moveset. Run the battle simulation. Again, one shield versus one shield. Tyranitar wins in 29 seconds with a battle rating of 840. Very, very impressive, okay? You shield the Leaf Blade. You can get rid of a shield with your own Crunch. Whether they do or don't shield it, it really doesn't matter, because by this point, they only have 6 hit points left, and in theory, it's only going to take you 2 more bites to get rid of the Gallade, okay? Now, to run the simulation again with Tyranitar versus Gallade, Gallade. Let's do no shields versus no shields. Run the battle simulation. Gallade wins in 19 seconds with a battle rating of 571, but it only has 14 hit points left. Bite shreds through him, okay? And that's also even assuming, as you can see, that he's going to use close combat. So just to counter any of those arguments or objections of maybe, you know, you can't afford an additional second charge move and you're just using Leaf Blade, let's run this simulation again with only Confusion and Leaf Blade. Run the battle simulation. Gallade is still going to win in 19 seconds. A lower battle rating, but it still only has 14 hit points left. Gallade can still win that matchup, whether he uses Leaf Blade or whether he uses close combat. Gallade can still win. Now, I know right now you're thinking, Jay, Gallade can get Charm now. Yes, he can get Charm, okay? Just for the sake of that argument that I almost guarantee is going to be presented, somebody's going to throw it in the comments. Let's just run the simulation right now with Charm, okay? Charm, Leaf Blade, close combat, battle, no shields versus no shields. Gallade wins in 10 seconds. Yes, Gallade can delete Tyranitar, but it still only has 26 hit points left. Neither of them are going to get to any charge moves or need to use any shields. That matchup is only considerable due to the fast move damage. I don't know what kind of state of mind you would have to be in to consider running a Charm Gallade for the Boulder Cup 2.0, but you know, you never know. It's just like the Claydol scenario. Claydol can threaten some other Pokemon so much more if it has Mud Slap. It's the same kind of situation with Gallade. So really, all that comes down to is, are you going to try and be a cheese Pokemon master, or are you just going to stick to the meta? And the last considerable matchup I want to get into when it comes, again, to Bite Crunch Tyranitar for the Boulder Cup 2.0 is going to be against Metagross, okay? Metagross, Metagrossi, I don't know what you want to call it whatever you want, but Metagross is going to be more threatening in this matchup against Tyranitar. Why? Because of Bullet Punch and because of Meteor Mash. Let's get him up here, Metagross. According to this, it's going to recommend Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, and Flash Cannon. Yes, I agree for the most part. You're going to want Bullet Punch and also at least Meteor Mash. Are you going to want or need Flash Cannon? No, with that moveset, absolutely not. You are only going to be using Meteor Mash. You might only need Meteor Mash. What I would consider running next to Bullet Punch could either be Psychic or Earthquake. Personally, my preference would be for Earthquake because of the matchups that can provide against the likes of Bronzong, Jirachi, Probopass, and Bastiodon. So again, Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, Earthquake. Let's bring the shields back up. One shield versus one shield. Tyranitar using Bite and only Crunch. No additional charge moves against the Metagross with Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, Earthquake. One shield versus one shield. Run the battle simulation. Tyranitar is going to win in 17.5 seconds with a battle rating of 685. The bite damage is real from Tyranitar. Massive damage. Yes, he is going to get to a Meteor Mash from Bullet Punch before you typically can KO. Now you might be thinking this is the type of matchup that can come down to PvP IVs. I don't think so. I changed the IV spread for both and ran multiple simulations for both of them in this battle in one shield versus one shield. Metagross, according to the simulations, is going to get to that Meteor Mash every single time, so you are going to need to use a shield. Let's do this as a demonstration, okay? Again, Tyranitar with Bite and Crunch, Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, and Earthquake Metagross. No shields, no shields. Run the battle simulation. Metagross wins in 17 seconds with a battle rating of 504. But you know what? Tyranitar doesn't care. Tyranitar don't care. I'm down to 0 HP. Bruh, I don't care. You have 1 HP left, Metagross. What are you gonna do with 1 HP? What? Tell me what you're gonna do with the 1 HP, my guy. You can't do anything. You doing nothing. Go home. Go home, Metagross. Sit down. So there, I guess, is my argument or my presentation, whatever you want to call it, for Bite Crunch Tyranitar for the Boulder Cup 2.0. Is it going to be considerable? Maybe. Could it come in clutch? Absolutely. Is it going to win people tournaments? I have no idea. But if I am given the chance to participate in a Boulder Cup 2.0 tournament in the arena, what I'm going to do is run a Bite Crunch Tyranitar. And what Pokemon could I potentially want to have sit next to Tyranitar, right? Again, consider his weaknesses. Mudslap Claydol can delete Tyranitar. What can destroy Mudslap Claydol? The thing that comes to my mind is potentially Torterra. Not so much. Something else that is still going to be a valid threat to Mudslap Claydol is going to be Hydro Cannon Swampert. Yes. So now we have, theoretically, on this theoretical team, Swampert sitting next to Tyranitar. Metacham is still going to be a very valid threat to both of them. So what are you going to want to bring for Metacham? Well, to be honest, you could use the Skarmory, you could use your own Metacham, or you could even have a Gallade sit next to them. So I mean, considering Skarmory as a threat to that team potentially, right? You have Bite Crunch Tyranitar sitting next to Hydro Cannon Swampert, and then Confusion Leaf Blade Close Combat Gallade. All of these matchups, each of these Pokemon in this team of 3 can still potentially win against the Skarmory. Would you have to be smart with how you play? Yes. Would you potentially have to win the lead matchup? Yes. So I mean, with all that being said, from my perspective, at the end of the day, could I win with a Bite Crunch Tyranitar? Absolutely. Is it risky? Yes. It is definitely going to be a gamble if you want to try running a Bite Crunch Tyranitar for the Boulder Cup 2.0, but it could be a very, very valid strategy. If you did enjoy, subscribe if you feel my vibe, power up, punch the notification bell for more PvP content. That is going to be it for today's Mirror Cup video. We will see you in the next Mirror Cup video. Have a good freaking day.